Alright guys, so today I'm going to explain the role of Anki in language learning. So a lot of people recommend using Anki to learn languages, and I think it's a very effective tool, but the dosage is just as important. You can't just use Anki all the time, because otherwise there becomes a point of diminishing returns with Anki, and it could actually hurt your ability to learn language after, right? If you do it too much. So you have to have the right balance, right? So you don't really need to use Anki, which means that if you just purely use immersion, if you're to just immerse in the language and not do any form of studying, you could become fluent in a language. So Anki is not a requirement for language acquisition. But what Anki does do is it aids in the language acquisition process. So how does this work, right? Well, let's say you're to learn a new word in a language, right? Like you're to learn the word for hashiru, right? Which means to run in Japanese. So if there was an anime scene where a character was like hashire, right, and the guy just and then like it shows like the next scene like the guy running, like you can infer through the context of the show that I heard this word hashire hashiru. I heard the word like when I was like when I was doing Anki, I learned the word in the morning, and then when I was watching this anime like later like in the evening, I noticed the word, and I recall the definition of the word. Like hashire means to run, and the guy runs on the screen, and then boom, that is the language acquisition process like clicked. Like that's when your brain clicked, because we only acquire languages when we understand them, right? So what Anki can do is it could help you understand the word in the context of a TV show, so that when it does come up, you're more likely to acquire it, because Anki's role is not to learn the precise meaning of the word. You will never understand the precise meaning of a certain word, because the reality is words are extremely nuanced in every language. So this means that one word cannot exactly equal another word in the language, right? Even if they're similar, there's different nuances of the word, right? So if you want to learn the true meaning of the word, you're just going to have to see that word used in thousands of different contexts. Now, what Anki can do is it can give like a general simplified explanation of what the word roughly means, right? And that's all you need to know. You just need to know what the word roughly means. And then by knowing the rough meaning of the word, when you see that word used in an anime or in the context of immersion, like in your immersion, then you can be like, oh, this word right here was it roughly meant like this. And then like that could help you actually understand the word in the context in the TV show as you're watching it. So Anki does actually accelerate your learning progress, right? It does. So it's better to use a little bit of it every day than to not use it at all. Like even for me, bro, like my Japanese is actually like college level, which means like the words I'm learning now in Japanese are actually words that natives wouldn't know, right? Now, why am I still using Anki despite having like almost native like vocabulary? Well, that's actually just because, Anki is actually very convenient to actually help me memorize and store the words that are very rare, right? Because now I'm at a point now where every time I watch an anime or read a book, any word that I don't know is extremely rare, right? Which means that I'm not going to come across this word like in a very long time. So if I want to make sure that I see this word again and the next time I see it, I understand it, I'm going to have to Anki it, right? So this happened to me a couple of times. Like the words I'm learning now, it's like most of the time I just don't even like come across it like in like 6 months, right? Which is fine, but that's how slow it is, because like I'm learning like super rare words now. You know what I mean? So like the words I'm learning are not going to come up that often, but Anki can be a good tool to help you at least memorize those words that don't even come up that often. Because if I have to try to learn these words purely through immersion, it'll be harder because these words don't come up at all, right? So if I were to come across this word once, what makes you think that I'm going to memorize and remember the meaning of this word by the time it comes up again like a year later? So that's when Anki is useful, because it can help you retain that word for a period of time. And when I do immersion now with Japanese, like there's only like I'm literally doing like 3 minutes of Anki, like not even like 1 minute. Like literally my Anki reps in Japanese right now are literally like 1 minute, because it's like I'm only reviewing like 5 to 10 cards, right? Because that's how little words I know. Like there's only like I'm hardly putting in like I'm not even putting in like words every day. Like I just put in words when I end up immersing in Japanese, right? Which is like maybe like like 3 words every like a week. So I'm adding in like literally 3 new words every week. So it's like, at that point it's like I'm not really using Anki at all. But that little bit of Anki that I do use is helping me tremendously retain the information from the rare words. Now, if you're a beginner, Anki has a different role. So right now, the role of Anki for me as an advanced learner is it's just going to help me memorize the hard vocabulary easier, because trying to memorize those very rare words by immersion alone is going to be a little bit harder. So if I want to speed up the process, Anki helps. But when you're a beginner, Anki has a different role, right? Anki helps you learn the most common words easily, right? Because when you're a beginner, most words will not stick to you, which means that every word you learn or like look up, like you're not going to be able to retain it because you have no ability. So it's hard for you to remember every word. But what Anki can do is it can help you cement certain words in your memory, so that when you go immerse, it'll help you understand your immersion a little bit more, right? Now the ratio has to be 5% Anki and 95% immersion. So you literally should not be spending more than 10 minutes on Anki. Do not exceed 10 minutes of Anki. Make 10 new flashcards a day. That's what I recommend. That's the golden number. That's the golden number, guys. 10 new flashcards every day. Okay? And just stick to that. And get like a retire add-on on Anki. Like you can look it up, but get like a retire add-on Anki, so that when a certain word, when a certain Anki card, exceeds a certain amount of days or like months, it'll automatically retire the word. So so words that end up like going past a year, I don't see those cards ever again. Those cards are retired, and I don't see them in my review anymore, because there's no point in me learning a word that I would have memorized in a year. You know what I mean? There's no point in reviewing that, because it's like they're old words that like don't even matter, right? Because I probably already acquired the word already. So that's just to keep it streamlined, right? And if you do this, if you do 10 cards every day, like what should happen is that you should gradually be able to have an insane vocabulary, right? With those 10, so you have 10 new words that you're learning every day, and then you learn like extra words in your immersion, but at least you're having like 10 guaranteed cards or words that you're learning every day, right? And I recommend just have it vocab cards. Like don't even try to make a sentence card. You can make sentence cards if you want, but the problem with sentence cards is that they take too much time. That's why I just stopped doing sentence cards. I only done vocab cards, where I have the Japanese word in the front and the definition in the back, right? Because I just gotta recall what the word is and the reading of the word too. So that's all I need to know. Okay, but that's the role of Anki, is to really help you memorize the word, so that when you do see it in your immersion, it becomes helpful. You end up acquiring it. Okay, so Anki is actually a hack. Okay, but like I said, you can't abuse it either, because it's not like spending more than an hour of Anki per day is gonna do any benefit. It's not gonna provide any benefit, bro. Like you gotta make sure that most of the time is immersion. You cannot neglect the immersion. Like I said, don't exceed 10 minutes a day. Like you should be doing Anki 10 minutes a day, guys. Like you should not be exceeding that amount. That's the amount I did. For the entire time I was learning Japanese for 2 years, I was only doing 10 minutes a day. Okay? Like I never exceeded 10 minutes. That's what you got. Like that's what I want you guys to understand. Okay? Like it was a very gradual process, guys. 10 new cards a day, 10 new words, and over time, like you're gonna learn it. Okay, you're going to eventually get it at a point. You're gonna get an extremely high vocabulary. Okay, like you're gonna know so many words that like you don't know what to do with. But you have to stick to that 10 new cards a day with Anki. Okay, don't exceed 10 minutes. 10 minutes of Anki, like first thing in the morning. I just recommend just get it done, right? And rest of the time immersion. Okay, rest of the time you're watching anime, reading manga, whatever, doing whatever, watching YouTube videos. Okay, rest of the time is immersion. But the role of Anki is just to help you acquire the language. So it does help. Okay, it's really going to accelerate your progress, but there's like a certain dosage. Because if you do no Anki, what might happen is you might, reach the acquisition a little bit slower. Like you might achieve fluency slower, right? But you still get there. But if you do too much Anki, then what happens is, and if that's going to like cut down your immersion time, then it's actually hurting you. Because now you're learning all these conscious words that like your brain is not internalizing because you're not doing enough immersion. So there has to be a right balance. And I think the balance is, like I said, 5% Anki and 95% immersion. Okay, and like don't exceed 10 minutes a day. Like literally 10 minutes, guys. Like literally, I did 10 minutes. I don't ever remember me exceeding even 30 minutes of Anki. Like even my entire time, even when I was going hardcore, doing like 30 cards a day, because there are times like a short burst of like 2 weeks where I'll make 30 cards a day, right? Even during those times where I was making 30 cards a day, I never exceeded like 30 minutes in review. Like it would be only like 15 minutes. Okay, so like that's just proof, guys. Okay, so you guys don't really need to be doing tons of Anki. You know, Anki is a supplement. It's a good tool to accelerate the language acquisition, but at the end of the day, immersion is what does most of the heavy lifting.